This week on Talking Real, we cover the 2020 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers report that was issued by the National Association of Realtors. 2020 was quite the crazy year, and this report highlights some very interesting things that have gone on in the market.
Some of these things you'd expect to see, but some will definitely surprise you.
Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. This is episode 148 of Talking Real, back in the studio with your hosts, Geoff and Nabeel. Nabeel, how's your day?
Day's going great. Got some Thanksgiving leftovers to look forward to.
Nice.
And yeah, I don't know if I'll do a sandwich or I don't know. I'm thinking about food now. Anyway.
Oh, man, I'm hungry myself, but we had a somewhat non-traditional Thanksgiving a little bit, smaller gatherings, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't really even have turkey. I guess my mother-in-law did make some fried turkey nuggets.
Okay.
But we didn't have turkey for like a traditional Thanksgiving meal. But, had some of the other staples like green bean casserole and lots of pie. So
Yeah.
can't complain.
Lots of pie. Yeah. We didn't do a full turkey either. Yeah.
That's the way it is.
Like you said, smaller Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, even though it is a little bit of a strange year, but everybody had a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. And found something that they were thankful for.
Absolutely. So this week we're having a follow-up to last week's episode, and if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's episode with Dr. Jessica Lautz, we really think that you should go listen to that before you listen to this one, because she has some great insight about where we were over the last year, where we were over the last couple decades, and kind of the direction that we're going. She does a lot of economic research on home buying and selling and the profile of those people. And I thought it was very insightful, kind of had a good time laughing with her and having some interesting conversations. So go check that one out because we're sort of following up on that this week by talking about the 2020 Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers. And we talked about this at the end of the episode that you can get that free. Usually it costs $20, but you can go get it for free under the right tools right now at NAR.Realtor.
And this isn't just an infographic that you're getting.
Right.
This is a 170-page report.
Yes.
And that is extremely detailed. And it's divided pretty nicely. It gives you some highlights, some overview, and then it's divided into 10 chapters that basically just goes through each of the different metrics that they measured.
Yeah. And
I mean, I'm probably going to browse through the whole thing. I haven't had a chance to go through all 170 pages of it.
Right.
But all the information on this is so interesting.
I agree. I think it's very interesting. I think it shows where we've shifted over time, and we'll give you insight about where do buyers and sellers come from, how do they look for their agents, just a lot of different characteristics, what kind of homes they're purchasing, just very interesting information that I think, again, gives you that insight into buyers and sellers that is important so that when you're talking with them, having conversations, you kind of understand the perspective that they're coming from. This is really valuable information. NAR spends a lot of time and money and effort putting together this information, so definitely check it out. Nabeel and I kind of divided this report up into two so that we could sort of split up, divide and conquer. And so we're going to bring you some highlights from all of the sections to talk about some of these interesting statistics and things like that. And we love to nerd out on these reports. So we're excited to talk about it today.
Let's do it. Yeah, we've kept it. I was purposely avoiding the sections that Geoff was going over. I want to get a little element of surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to surprise each other with some of these, different characteristics and things like that and get each other's take on what we found interesting out of this report. And the first one, I'm going to kick it off with the characteristics of home buyers. So this is the first section that they went through. And Nabeel, they said, I thought this was very interesting. They said that the typical buyer was 47 years old this year, which was pretty steady from last year. And the median household income for 2019 rose again to $96,500 as the median income for a home buyer. I don't know what I thought about that, but I guess I thought that the typical buyer being 47 years old, at first I was like, oh, that seems older than I would have expected. But I guess for a median, so right in the middle, that sort of makes sense. People in their 40s, that's sort of being the middle range of people. So you get both sides.
Right.
I suppose that kind of makes sense. A little bit of a bell curve.
I wish they had said the average.
Right.
That would have been, because you're right. The 40-year-old mark is right there in the middle. Because initially I thought that's kind of old too. But then when you think about the fact that it's a median, the middle of the data, that makes sense.
And then it's kind of holding steady, from last year. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
But also that the median income was $96,500. I actually thought that seemed kind of high for being the median, but maybe not. I know salaries in other parts of the country. This is sort of a nationwide report, and so your salary in higher income areas, higher cost of living areas is going to be a little bit higher. So Oklahoma is about as cheap as home buying can get, and so our salaries are also going to be a little bit lower here in Oklahoma, lower cost of living. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting piece.
Right. And most people are buying as a couple, right? So the household income, I would imagine, would be a little higher.
Yeah. This other one I thought was interesting. 12% of home buyers purchased a multi-generational home, which is actually the same as last year, but they had a lot of different reasons for it. Some include to take care of an aging parent. Some because children over the age of 18 were moving back home, and some for cost savings. So there were a lot of different reasons. I thought the children over the age of 18 moving back home is interesting. I think that's more common these days, where people, children are moving back in, but also that taking care of aging parents is very common. And so people are actually going out, 12% of people, which I thought that was kind of high. I think that surprised me a little bit that it was that high, that they have multi-generational homes being purchased at 12%.
Yeah. Well, what actually surprised me was that you said it didn't really change from last year.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because I'd expected this year specifically to have caused a bump in that, but it didn't.
I kind of wonder over time if that will be increasing with, aging baby boomers, for example, and so their children coming up and maybe being more likely to purchase a multi-generational home, if that'll be expanding a little bit or if that'll hold steady. So we'll keep an eye on that and see where it goes.
Maybe people liked living all together this year and they're going to continue it.
Absolutely.
All right. So the next part of this report, Chapter 2, as they call it, was the characteristics of homes purchased. Well, we kind of touched upon this earlier, and hopefully we don't overlap too much. But the first thing that stuck out to me was most recent buyers who purchased new homes were looking to avoid renovations and problems with plumbing, electricity, all that type of stuff at 44%. And I know, especially your experience, you look for things to fix.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I think so. 44% of people were looking to avoid renovations and problems. That tells you that perhaps, what would that be? 56% of people have at least some tolerance for renovation. So over half of the people are willing to accept at least some amount of problems in renovations.
Yeah.
I don't mind some of those things. I'm always willing to say, well, the house is 90% what I'm interested in, so I'll take on a project. Of course, we've also bought a house that we took on that was almost a 100% a project, and that was not a lot of fun. But I can see that. I'm actually almost thinking that the 44% I would have expected to be higher, that more likely to say, I don't want a house that's move-in ready. I feel like I hear that a lot. I want a house that's move-in ready.
Right. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. But that tells you at least, over half the people are willing to have some amount of a project. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Keep an open mind to get what it is that you desire.
Exactly.
I suppose.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, and this was interesting, was the median distance between the home that the person lived in and the new home that they purchased. The median distance between those two was only 15 miles. So that kind of told me two things. One, people weren't moving because they had to move. And two, this was very much a choice.
Yeah.
It seemed like.
And that, that's how I've done all my home purchases are probably even closer than that for the most part, that it's not necessarily I'm relocating to another city, that most people are moving within their own city to, buy a bigger house, upgrade, those kinds of things, but they're not necessarily changing jobs or changing locations, those kinds of things. And so, I guess I can see that being 15 miles. I've actually had multiple It's funny. I've now owned 3 houses within like probably 2 square miles. It's just crazy. We've built 1 mile to the east and then bought another house 1 mile to the west of, our same house. So that's kind of, yeah, I am definitely bringing that down for sure.
He's the outlier.
Yeah. So chapter 3 here is the home search process. And, buyers typically searched for 8 weeks and looked at a median of 9 homes and viewed 5 of those homes online. And kind of connected to that is that the share of home buyers who use the internet to search for a home is at an all-time high of 97%, which is like, right, we know that everybody's, but now it's literally everybody. I mean, I say literally 97% of people. It's almost literally everybody. But I thought this was interesting that they typically searched for 8 weeks, looked at 9 homes, but 5 of those they viewed only online, which is maybe a little bit of a change, particularly this year where there's been a lot more of online viewing, using the internet to view homes, and not going into homes quite as much.
Right.
But yeah, 9 homes. I don't know.
That seems small to me,
Right.
but it also tells me that people are using online viewings to really narrow down their search, right? Those 5 homes that they saw online, they're like, we don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Or maybe some might have been the opposite and be like, that's the one. We don't even need to see it in person.
Yeah.
But I figured most of those online homes were probably, all right, let's not look at this in person. Let's use our time more efficiently.
Yeah. And to have that as an alternative, like that tolerance for being willing to use the internet for basically a substitute as a actual showing of a home,
right.
I think is really interesting. The other piece here, 91% of recent home buyers found their real estate agent to be very or somewhat useful as an information source.
That's a good thing.
I think that's great. And this is, I feel like we've said this, that, the way for realtors to really make sure that relevance to home buyers and sellers stays in this era of the growth of iBuyers and things like that, is that information source. You've got at least 91% of people saying that as an information source, their real estate agent was helpful. And so I think that is an important key on into the future for maintaining the relevance of what we do here.
Right. You're serving as an aggregate of all the information that's out there.
Yeah.
So you're the Google for real estate.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, that's, I think, a word of caution to those 9% who maybe aren't serving as a good information source, but that tells you that that's what your clients want. They want you to be an information source. So be an expert for them.
Right.
Which means listen to Talking Real and get lots of continuing education and those kinds of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The next part of this report was the home buying and real estate professionals. Something that you mentioned earlier, 91% found them useful. 51% were looking towards an agent to help them select the right home. So that was more than half of the people wanted help from an agent to figure out what the right home for them is.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense that you've got somebody who, they're looking for a home. They know they want something different. They, how many agents sit down, how many realtors sit down with their client and they start talking about what is it you want in a home, and they've got like some vague notion about what they want, and you're like, okay, let's dig deeper, right? Like, how many car garage are you looking for?
Right.
Are you okay with the 2-story? Are you not? I mean, all these kinds of questions that they've sort of thought about, but they're really looking for you to guide them through that process to narrow it down. And so I think that makes perfect sense that, you've got about half the people who've got a pretty good idea of what it is they're looking for, but they want you to help guide them through the process, and about half the people who really need your help to figure out what it is they're looking for.
Right. They just know they want a garage.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I think that's important, just walking your clients through those situations.
Yeah.
And now talking about realtors and agents, 40% of buyers used an agent that was referred to them by a friend, neighbor, or relative. And 13% used an agent that they had worked with in the past. So pretty high numbers, right? And going hand in hand with that, 73% of buyers only interviewed one agent.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem like they're really shopping for an agent.
Yeah.
I think they're doing most of their research before or whatever referral they get. They do their research and then they just talk to you to make sure that their research was accurate. That's what that tells me.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've highlighted some of those on the seller side that we'll talk about momentarily. So kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see how they differ a little bit.
Yeah. So I think a key takeaway for that, if I was practicing in the buying and selling of real estate, is to have a good online presence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you get a lot of people who are either reusing the same agent or they're going to, get a referral from a friend. But I mean, you still got at least a third of the people out there that are finding an agent through some other means. And since 97% of people are going online to search for homes, they're probably finding it online. So having a good online presence, I think, is important.
Right. And keeping it up to date.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So the next chapter, financing the home purchase. So first-time home buyers who finance their home typically financed 93% of their home compared to repeat buyers at 84%. And I thought that was kind of interesting to show that the majority of people are financing their home and they're financing the bulk of it, which I would have expected that number to be a little bit lower for repeat buyers, I think, as over time, maybe you've bought and sold multiple homes, got a little more equity built up.
I would agree with that. But then on the flip side, looking at everything that we've seen this year, I think most of them were upgrading, and so the value associated with it. But I would have still expected that to be a little higher. Yeah.
Interesting. And the next one is that of the buyers who said saving for a down payment was difficult, 47% of buyers reported that student loans made saving for a down payment difficult. 43% cited high rent and mortgages. And 36% cited credit card debt as making saving for a down payment hard. So it was interesting. The 47%, I really wanted to key on this, 47% of buyers reported that student loans made saving for a down payment difficult. And I feel that. I took out student loans for undergrad. I took out student loans for law school. I've been paying those off for 10 years. I will continue to be paying those off for the next 15 if I don't pay it off early, right? And that's right. Yes, I made my choices, but that's a significant amount of my income every month and every year that goes towards paying student loans that can't be used towards paying for a mortgage for a nicer house or something.
I mean, it's like you'd already had a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. A mortgage on my edge. It is. I mean, right? That's what it is. Yeah. And so I get that. And I just find that interesting in today's political climate where there's been a lot of talk about student loans, the trillions of dollars in student loans that are out there, the difficulty of that. And, I sympathize with some of that as somebody who probably didn't fully grasp what taking out student loans meant for the long-term financial ability and health. That now it's like, man, I maybe would have made some different choices back then when I was, 18, 22, taking out student loans that I didn't fully understand. And I was one of those people who had a college counselor that was like, it's basically free money, right? It's just, they'll give you the money, you don't start paying interest till you graduate. But now I look at it and like my interest rate on my student loans are twice what my mortgage is, Yeah. So I'm not here like advocating for any particular position here, but I'm just saying I understand and I see that how 47% of buyers are saying this is a problem. And I think that just puts it into perspective that a lot of people have a lot of student loans and it makes it difficult to do things like buy a house as a first-time home buyer. So I get it. And I think that's an interesting number.
I think that totally makes sense.
So I'll get off my soapbox about student loans.
About student loans?
Yeah.
Maybe you should refi your student loans.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So on to home sellers and their selling experience. For all sellers, the most commonly cited reason for selling their home was the desire to move closer to friends and family, 15%, and that the home was too small at 14%. And then following that up was a change in family situation at 12%. And they said that sellers typically lived in their home for about 10 years before selling.
So let's see. I bought my first house probably 8 years ago-ish. And I'm in my fourth home?
Stop skewing the numbers.
Yeah. Okay. 10 years. That seems high to me for some reason. I feel like, but that probably makes sense. I think the interesting thing here is that the most commonly cited reason for selling was a desire to move closer to friends and family. Mm-hmm. That is surprising to me. I just would never have guessed that that would be the top reason for selling your home, as opposed to the home's too small or downsizing or change in family situation, right? Having kids or something along those lines.
Right.
That's what I would have expected to far and away be number one, not moving closer to family and friends. But I love that idea that it's like moving closer to my community. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, my college friends and I have always joked about, we'll all get houses next to each other, and
Yeah.
and people are actually doing that, which is awesome.
I love it.
And this was cool to see. Recently sold homes, the final sales price was a median of 99% of the final listing price.
Wow.
Which I thought was pretty impressive. Like, you're getting what you're asking for your house.
Yeah. Especially this year where we've seen low inventory, the market kind of going bananas this year, that you're going to get that. We've heard so many stories of tons of multiple offer situations with like significant number of offers, those kinds of things. And that's going to really drive that number high, where you probably have some that are selling above list price.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that's not above 100.
Yeah. You almost would think that it is. So that's interesting. And that also tells you that realtors are doing a good job of guiding their clients to price their homes right.
True.
Yes. They're looking for that guidance to, we want to sell quickly, but we want to sell for a fair price. And so
that's the true takeaway here.
Absolutely. Realtors doing a good job of helping price homes.
Yes.
All right. So the next one, home selling and real estate professionals. So this is, you covered this earlier on buyers and the percentage on where they found their agent. 67% of sellers found their agent through a referral from a friend, neighbor, or relative, or used an agent they had worked with before to buy or sell a home. So let's kind of combine the two. But again, it's 67% are using either a referral or somebody that they've used before.
And I feel like that's higher than...
I think it is a little bit higher.
Yeah, the other one was 40. So that is significantly higher.
Yeah. So you've got 67% that it's either referral, somebody you've used before, but that also tells you there's an opportunity out there for a third of people that are selling their homes are using somebody that doesn't come as a referral, they haven't used before. And so this is where having that online presence, because again, 97% of people are going online to look at homes, and that's where people find things. They look at reviews, they look at realtors near me, right? They go and search for that. So
that's probably exactly what they type.
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma City realtors, right? And then, that's the kind of thing that they're looking for. So having a good online presence, I think, is important for those unknown sellers out there who aren't getting a referral. But also, again, 67% are using somebody they either used before or it's a referral. So having a strong referral network is obviously really important, and maintaining those relationships with prior clients,
right,
and continuing to reach out.
You can never go wrong with a good sphere of influence.
Absolutely. So nothing surprising there, but definitely just reinforces some of the things we talk about. This typical seller has recommended their agent once since selling their home, and 27% of sellers recommended their agent 4 or more times since selling their home.
Wow.
If that's not a statement of why it's important to have good customer service, and again, 27% saying they've done it 4 or more times, that's great. I mean, those are the people who are really happy with their realtor and have had that opportunity to refer them multiple times. Right. I think that's great. So be one of those 27% good customer service.
That's significant. I mean, you think about that one person referring you to 4, and then if each of those 4 refer you to 4 others, I mean, absolutely, you're going to have a busy month.
That is multi-level marketing at its finest.
Decade.
Yeah.
Career.
Your own little pyramid scheme of referrals. It's beautiful.
Oh no, don't cheapen referrals.
Yeah, I just think that's great. That's excellent.
A pyramid scheme of referrals.
Right.
That's nice.
That's what we want.
I like it. Someone should teach a course called the pyramid scheme of referrals. The next part of this report was dealing with for sale by owners.
Okay.
So, for sale by owner homes sold more quickly on the market than agent-assisted homes. That was surprising. But then it also says, it says 77% of for sale by owner homes sold in less than 2 weeks, which is incredibly quick. But it was often because homes are being sold to someone the seller already knew. So that's where all that kind of starts making sense, like where you're like, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a stat, that's interesting that a for sale by owner, I keep saying home, for sale by owner homes sell faster than agent assisted ones.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's like something like, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all right, well, I'll just for sale by owner this, and it's already done pre-listing.
Yeah.
So to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could certainly see that's something that is very common. People already know someone. Maybe people, I wonder if this gets lumped in here, like people flipping houses, those kinds of things may fall within that as well. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
And the other interesting point of for sale by owner homes, I almost said Honer homes again, was that they sold for less. Their selling price was typically less than that of agent assisted homes. So the for sale by owner homes sold for about $217,000, which is up from last year, but significantly lower than that median of agent assisted homes at $242,000.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a significant difference. And of course that comes to, agents doing a good job of explaining to their sellers that, yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit more when you're factoring in commissions, but on average, your home's going to sell for significantly more when you're doing that. So,
right. And even after commissions, the seller comes out ahead, right?
Absolutely. So. Good stuff. All right, so we're going to dip into just a couple categories of COVID-19 related statistics. And the first one is
pretty well to avoid that so far.
Yeah, so far. But right now, we're going to look at the home buyers before and during COVID-19. The first thing I thought was interesting was buyers who purchased after March. So this is like during pandemic, basically. March was kind of that dividing line. So buyers who purchased after March have a shorter expected tenure in the home they purchased, just 10 years, compared to those who purchased before the pandemic who expect to own their home for 15 years.
Interesting.
I don't know what that is, except that maybe because there was the, hotter market, lower inventory, that people were maybe willing to settle a little bit, but they were like, but we won't stay here quite as long, but this will get us through because they were, had to buy a house quicker. I don't know. I thought that was such a stark difference between the 10 years and 15 years of before and after and how long they expected to live there. I thought that was crazy.
I would have actually expected that to be even starker because of the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, like, yeah, we'll move now, but then down the line we'll move again.
Yeah.
Right? I thought that would be an even shorter time than 10 years, but moving is a pain.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And here's the other one, is that buyers who purchased after March of 2020 searched for just 2 weeks before working with an agent compared to those who purchased pre-pandemic who searched for 3 weeks before getting an agent. So you've got, that's a 50% reduction in how long they searched. I say that's not probably right. That's a third, 33%. Oh, man. Dang. But
it's a good thing you're not compiling these reports.
Right, exactly. But man, that they jumped on finding an agent much quicker. One, what I took away from this in terms of what's the value of the realtor there, people highlighted during this pandemic that I need an agent to get this done. Right, they were much quicker to go find their agent. Part of that may have been homes are moving faster, and so I got to make the call to get that agent, online quicker to help me out with this. But that's a significant difference, that people when searching were much quicker to contact their agent to help them out. Again, I think that highlights the value of a realtor, particularly in navigating difficult transactions like when there's a global pandemic going on. That's some difficulty that's unusual.
Right. And you lean on the expert to guide you through weird times.
Absolutely.
Yep. So now on to home sellers before and during COVID-19. Sellers who sold after March were more likely to use technology as a marketing tool. Big surprise.
Right.
Which is great. And the biggest difference that was seen for the technology-based usage was the increase in virtual tours.
Yeah.
It went from 16% of those who used it pre the situation that we're in right now, up to 27%. So almost doubled.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah.
That's significant.
And people are really quick to adopt that, which is great.
Yeah.
And then I think this is home pricing. Home sellers who sold after March sold their home for $300,000, while those who sold it before sold it for $270,000. So
that seems like a astonishing jump in the median home price.
Right.
I don't know what would account for that you've got like a 10% jump in such a short time period. But that is significant. I don't know. It's like interesting to know what that means. Obviously, like an overly aggressive jump in home prices, I think could be a cause for concern for affordability. And does it create kind of a bubble that home prices have gone up too much because there was a mad rush or whatever? I don't know. But that's interesting. I mean, it sounds like it may be good though, that home prices have surged a little bit. That's always a good thing.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. That's a big jump.
Yeah. And it could just be like that cycle of upgrade that everyone was doing.
Yeah.
Or most people were doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, things are moving fast. So many realtors have said they've had banner years.
Yeah.
Like they've just been the busiest they could be.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, this was just a little taste of this 2020 profile of home buyers and sellers. I really can't encourage you enough to go get this report and take a look at it. It's free. It's got a significant amount of interesting information. This was just a handful of highlights that we went through.
Right.
And so go to NAR.Realtor, search for Right Tools right now, and it's right there on the main page, 2020 profile of home buyers and sellers. And while you're there, check out all the other things that they have available at that Right Tools right now. Lots of education, resources, things like that. So check it out. It's, like I said, I think it's very enlightening. I've learned a lot. Just kind of fascinating to see what it is and get an idea of what it is that people are looking at, what they're thinking out there.
Right. And if you want us to go through the whole 170-page report, please don't. I mean, we'd love to, but I feel like you would get tired of listening to us.
Yeah.
But in any case, hit that subscribe button so you know when that next episode is out, and share this podcast with fellow realtors so they know what to look for when they're out there dealing with their clients.
Absolutely. And when you have a chance to take a look at this report, if you find something that you think is particularly interesting, send us an email and let us know what it is. You can email us at podcast@OKRealtors.com. And until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.